Look, very serious matters that we've got to start the show with tonight. Very tragic, infuriating, frustrating, despair. I mean, what words do we now use to describe the scenes that we've seen unfold again on European soil today? I'm speaking, of course, of the fact that nearly 30 people have been injured, some of them now in a critical condition. And, you know, if you was following the news today, you will have heard everyone talking about, this car has driven into them, like we've got some kind of self-driving cars now that are randomly going about doing all of these awful things. Well, no, actually, that car was rammed into innocent people by a man that we now know to be an asylum seeker from Afghanistan. And you guessed it, he was known to the police. I'm getting so sick and tired of kind of talking about these horrific stories. I personally sit there and I've had my head in my hands today and I've been thinking to myself, what have the leaders of Europe done? What have they done to this continent, to these countries? And I don't say it in past tense. I say it, what are they still doing? What is happening to our nations?
Well,
I despair,
to start with,
Mackenzie.
in Germany, of course, Chancellor Merkel, right, revered as the great one, you know, friends with Russia, friends with Afghanistan, friends with anybody, will take 1 million migrants in, and it's turned out to be a political disaster as well as a human paying a price disaster, a human disaster for lots of people in Germany. Every so often something like this happens. All this is going to guarantee is that the AfD move from second in the polls, probably up to joint first. And there may be problems. There may be problems about forming a government in Germany now, which used to be one of the great kind of commercial powerhouses of the world and now completely on its backside. And what I also don't like, Chancellor Scholz is completely a useless. He reminds me of Starmer, actually. Totally useless. Almost everything he does turns out to be wrong. We'll stop the nuclear. We'll never do this. Now they haven't got any electricity, even probably coming up to our prices. But I feel sorry for the people of Germany because every time they hear of anything, they always know, oh, it will be a migrant, it will be a Muslim migrant. That guy in 2016 was told you can't become a German citizen, we're not going to allow you in. We are now 9 years later, and yet here he is, but Islamic madman actually trying to kill as many people as he can. I feel desperate, but actually, we can't even say in our own country that something similar doesn't happen. You ask the people of Manchester how they feel about some of the migrants.
I do have to point out there'll be a lot of people watching this that'll say, you know, it's not an Islamic guy, it's an Islamist guy, and people will try very hard to make the difference between the two things. Matthew, where are you on this?
There's only one place you can be, and that's obviously, first of all, thinking of the families. It's awful. It sounds like a tired old line, but you struggle to find words for stuff like this. And Kelvin spoke about the people of Manchester. I from Manchester, was living in Manchester at the time, and knew of people that died in the awful attack at the Manchester Arena, and was there sort of the next day wondering what to do, offering help and whatever else. So I wouldn't say I speak with first-hand experience, but when these events come, you worry it's a very similar thing. I think ultimately, whether it be Germany or this country, we have to look at changes to the asylum system. Because as it currently stands, for you to be considered, if you are a genuine migrant asylum seeker, you've got to present yourself at that country. And this is why we currently have people crossing the channel, causing all sorts of chaos, as well as people losing their lives. And I think if you made changes to the fact and made it more digital, so at the moment we have chaos in Syria, which has been ongoing for some time, but now the country's in a very bad way. You are almost certainly going to have people from Syria making their way across countries to try and come to England. They will more than likely have family members here. They may have legitimate reasons to come here. But why can't you have posts, therefore, in Turkey? They're going to have to come through Turkey to get here, and they are processed at Turkey. This is not, a sort of Rwanda scheme.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry.
Just hold on one second, because with respect, I think that the point here is slightly being missed, because for me and for a great number of my viewers, it won't necessarily be about the semantics of how do you process people. There's got to be a cold, hard, honest conversation and an acceptance, I think, among the political class, not just in this country, but across broader Western nations. There's a harsh reality and there is a harsh fact. There are some people that are so incompatible, given their belief system, or should I say their belief system is so incompatible with the way that we choose to live and that we enjoy to live in the West, which is a free, relatively, or it used to be anyway, relatively safe way. There are some belief systems that some people hold that are just incompatible with that. When they then come to these countries, they want to cause us harm. And unless the powers that be, the political powers that be, will actually accept that fact, I don't actually see how you can move forward.
So I think
Do you accept that fact?
I think we can move forward. And I think there are people that are compatible, because you have to ask the question...
But do you accept that... well, if you're compatible, you're not a problem, are you? I'm not talking about the people that are compatible. I'm specifically talking about there are some people that hold belief systems that are entirely incompatible with the Western world.
And that has always been the way.
Yeah, but is that accepted? Do you think that's accepted? And do you think, actually, we should start with that as a premise, and once you establish that premise and everyone accepts that premise, from there you build policy, whatever that may be?
I suppose the issue with building policy around that is, how do you know this, that they want... You are always going to have people that will lie, unfortunately. This fella appears to have been known to the authorities. That, therefore, is an issue of why the authorities are either not sharing information properly, whether they are sharing information, whether this could have been stopped. We've seen it in this country over the years. But I don't think you should also judge a whole, say, country of people or culture of people by awful incidents like this, because not everybody...
Don't you think there's a consistency of their attitudes, whoever they are, whether they are, let's just accept they are a minority, but hell's bells, they're a dangerous minority. Wouldn't it be much easier than simply to say we aren't going to take in such people? Wouldn't it? And that way we just stop bombings, we stop killings, we stop the stabbings of people that we know not.
Maybe in our
what's wrong
country,
with that?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go on.
Maybe in our country, and that would be great. The issue is, if you look at this fella's come from Afghanistan, that's largely our fault, the way we left it and all the rest of it. We all saw those things.
It is not our fault, the fact that Afghans come to various countries in Europe and bomb us and stab us.
But it is our fault.
That is not our fault. They seem to be a very violent, nasty people. An entire nation made up of these people.
And I agreed. I did not say it's our fault that they're coming here to do that. It is our fault that people are fleeing. It's our fault the fact that the Taliban are back in power. It's our fault that the country is in a worse position than it ever was. So therefore, what do? Do you ignore your international obligations and go, well, we've made a mess in the Middle East again, so we're just going to crack on now?
Absolutely I do. If we have made a mistake, and actually, as far as I know, the West is constantly trying to make things, quotes, right in the Middle East and elsewhere, right? We just simply say that's the end. So the thing about Trump, right, he has now said that is the end, and Biden said that was the end in Afghanistan. After all, Russia also had to go in Afghanistan. Loads of people have tried to kind of organise and kind of westernise and liberalise these places. They don't want to be liberalised. Their basic tenet of life, their religion, makes them want to be what they are. I, frankly, have come to the end of wanting to have an open-door policy, even if they are allowed to come here. So I've changed my mind on this. I'd rather have our people alive. I don't want any more innocent people killed by people I know not and care not for.
I know, but then what's the practical reality of, like, how
you have to do a reform. You have to do a reform. Unfortunately, we are literally going to turn them back. We are going to have to turn these people back. After all, they almost invariably, everybody on that boat follows Islam. I mean, our nation, I saw a piece of Pew Research the other day saying that we're going to end up with by 2015, 18 to 19% of the country will be Muslim. Well, actually, I don't want to see that. I don't even want to see the politics of what happened to the Labour government, the Labour Party, in the last general election. Imagine what that looks like with 18 or 19% of the country, of the voting population. It will be a nightmare.
But I do have to say, though, as well, I mean, I make this point often. My very best friend in the whole world, she's a Muslim. I think it's very well documented. My ex-partner is a Muslim. They're not terrorists. They wouldn't, my best mate, he's not going to get in a car and go ramming down children. I've spoken to her today. She's as horrified as what I am about what's unfolded
how can we tell
in Germany?
Then? How can we tell whether to allow somebody in who looks like a decent person or your friends who are Muslim? How can we tell that that person over there actually has bad thoughts in their mind? The answer is don't allow anybody in. Why should I take the risk? Why should I take the risk with my family?
Which is lovely, but we have enough people here, born here, from all different religions, all non-religions, that also have bad ideas in their mind. And this comes back to whether it's the idea of he's a bloke or he's whether he feels ostracised or whether this is not to give him any sort of sympathy. But we need to get to these people before they get to that way.
Who feels ostracised?
The people that tend to commit terrorism tend to commit for several different reasons, and these are complicated reasons, one of which can be ideological. That may turn out to be the case, therefore maybe he isn't compatible with how we live in the West. Others, we've seen lone wolf-style attacks in places like Plymouth, whereby people, they're involuntary celibate and all the rest of it. There's something wrong with young men and the way they're getting angrier and angrier from West, East, all the rest of it that needs to be tackled, and we don't talk about it enough in this country, I don't think.
Oh, honestly, I just absolutely despair. It makes me feel really sad. It makes me just feel really hopeless. It makes me feel worried for the future. What is the answer to all of this? Do you have the answer? What practical things can actually be done across Europe, in this country? What could actually be done? What could actually, I don't know, has it all gone too far? Because when I'm saying to you what could be done, I feel there's a small part of me, depressingly in my mind, that sits here just thinking it's too late. It's all too late. I don't know. Do you share my pessimism?